There's huge waves outside, but there's fish on the inside. Hi, my name's Roger Osborne. Well, today I've actually got quite a rough surf, but you know what? You can still catch dinner in rough conditions. And I'm going to explain to you exactly why in this video, and also show you all my gear as I usually do. Stick around to the end for a free PDF download, which will outline some vital keys from today's session. If you're enjoying my content, I really appreciate it if you hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. It really helps my channel. Let's get fishing. We've actually had some quite challenging weather for the last week. Really strong winds, heavy rain, the seas have been an absolute mess. And the waves are still pretty big. However, I just love it because there's so many opportunities in all sorts of conditions. And I haven't tossed a line in the water yet, but I know I'm going to catch some fish. Absolutely certain. I'm going to catch a few beach worms as well. All I came down was with a few pilchards, but it's low tide just before dark, so I can actually double up and I can catch my own fresh bait right on the beach and then whack it on and start fishing. So that's my plan. I'm going to catch a few worms. Don't know if there's any here, but I'm pretty sure there will be. Looks nice. Now, as I said, the seas have been really rough, and I'm not sure if there's going to be any worms here, but it's nice and flat. Looks good for beach worming, and I love the look of the water behind it. The big sets are breaking right out the back, but there's a beautiful section of deep green water right in close, well within casting distance, which I know will have a whole lot of different fish in there. So just going to whack these pilchards, wave them around in the water, see if any worms are going to come up. Can I see anything on the first? Yeah, I actually saw a couple of worms. How's that? One wave and some worms came up. Oh, actually, I can see a lot of worms. That's good because it won't take me long to catch bait. I can actually see dozens of worms, which is awesome. But the way these waves are breaking, the water's going to wash all the way up, then it's going to go all the way back. I don't want to be trying to catch them too far down to the edge. So I think I'd prefer to catch worms higher up the beach. Looks like a couple of the army boys up there in a helicopter. How's that? Didn't take long to find some worms. You know, I'm standing here and there's 3 worms in front of me about 2 inches apart. But I need to wait for a little gap in the waves. Like I'll get a go now. The worms are not huge, but they don't have to be huge. Like they're not huge worms, but they don't have to be huge. I'll get 2 lovely baits out of that worm. Enough to catch 2 fish potentially. If you'd like to learn about beach worming, it's an amazing skill to learn. It is difficult, but once you master it, you have a skill for life that I can highly recommend. And you know, while it is difficult, if you apply yourself, it doesn't really take that long. So if you would like to do that, head on over to my website and check out my beach worming masterclass. It has 19 very detailed videos that will teach you everything you need to know to catch beach worms. It's another small one, but there's a few here. When they're small, I like to kind of pick out the big ones. You can tell how big a worm is by the size of its head. That's how you can tell. 5 worms in one spot. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to get that one. Oh, I've just got to close my fingers slowly, otherwise he's going to get away. Look at that. Sheesh. They're everywhere. There's hundreds. There is hundreds and hundreds of worms here. It's really awesome. They're not big, but tell you what, when I flick up the scent like that, they come up everywhere. I'm looking for the bigger ones, actually. You know, I was worming a few days ago and fishing. I'm standing like this, the wave washed up, the water was maybe that deep around my legs. I turn around and there's this huge splash and boil in the water, and there was an Australian salmon that big right next to my foot. It had swum up and it realised I was here at the last minute. It could actually smell the pilchards that were in here. Came right up next to me. I've never seen that before. And then it took off, so I kept worming and it came back up again. And it was sniffing around my legs. It was like a torpedo. It was that big. It was incredible. It's not that big. You know, when you're actually catching bait and you're catching your beach worms like this, you're catching worms, but you're also burleying, because even though you might only have a few pilchards in a stocking, that scent gets out there. I remember another time where I had a flathead that big, almost sucking on my toe. It was that close. It had swum up right next to my leg while I was getting worms. It's incredible. I always like to breadcrumb the worms because you just can't hold them otherwise, they're too slippery. Now I'm actually going to tie my worming bait, I'm going to tie it to my rod holder and let it waft around in the waves just to keep that scent out there that could attract some fish. Now I've actually brought down with me today, I brought my heavy outfit, which I talked about in my last video, and also my medium outfit. That's pretty much what I do most of the time. I like to have a heavy line with me because if I catch a fish that I could use as a live bait, or if I just want to put out a bigger bait to catch a bigger fish, I love having that option. Now I brought some pilchards with me, so on my heavy line, I'm going to whack a whole pilchard out on a ganged hook and have that as a set line. And then I'm going to hold my medium rod, which I'm going to have 2 worm baits on. So my first job is to actually take this down there, and I'm going to tie my thing around as a, may as well double up as burley, so I'll take this down. So that means I'll need to put my rod holder close enough to the water so that the water can waft around this little bag of pilchards, so that it does actually work as burley. I don't want to go too close to the edge because I don't want the waves to kind of wash up right on my rod, so I just need to be down in the zone here. I always like to make sure the rod holder's in well, because you get a big fish that pulls, you don't want it to pull your rod over. I have had that happen. I'm sure some of you guys might have had that happen, where you've had a rod holder in and a big fish has pulled so hard, it's pulled your whole rod, the holder, everything over. So I've just tied this on, just a granny knot really, and I'm going to let that, when the waves wash up, the waves can wash that around. So got some pilchards in here. I don't salt them, I just use them as they are. They're a soft bait, they're a 1-bite bait, but most of the time you hook the fish anyway. So I'm going to go down and whack a pilly out. I actually bought a couple of boxes of hooks for ganging today. I bought a box of 3/0s and a box of 2/0s because I want to make my own ganged hooks, and I want to adjust the sizes of the hooks on some of my rigs. So that's probably something for another video actually. So all I've got here is a set of 3 ganged hooks and a large star sinker with a relatively short leader. Just looking, that's actually got some fraying on it. That's no good. I didn't even realise that that had happened the last time I was fishing. But there's some obvious cuts in the line. So I'm going to need to put another leader on. I can't just chuck that out, I'll risk losing a fish. Okay, so I've retied, put a new leader on. It's always best to have a relatively short leader when you're using a whole pilchard bait. It just flies through the air much better with a shorter leader. So I only really have a leader generally about 20 or 30 centimetres long. When I'm using a whole pilchard like that, you'll be able to see my sinker. It's not that far above the pilchard, but that's all you need. So now, I'm expecting that I don't think there's going to be much sideways current here because I've actually got a huge sandbar that is really running for about a kilometre or so right along this beach. There's a massive sandbar out the back where all the waves are crashing, but then there's a lovely channel of green water along the inside. So there's no spot here where this water can escape straight out to sea, which would cause the current to head in one direction. So I don't really think there's going to be much current, which is great in this type of setup. That's what you want. So this one's going to sit out there while I hold my line that has the worms on it, which I will grab very soon. I don't have to cast it out all that far. I still want to walk a bit closer, give it a gentle hoik. Perfect. This rod is actually 13 feet long, so it's a decent length rod. I recently got another rod, a new one, that is 15 feet long. I may get hammered by a salmon with a bait like this out there. We'll see what happens. Okay, so I've got my pilchard bait out there and I've got my pilchard burley sock in operation. So now I'm going to just enjoy holding onto this line with a couple of fresh worm baits. It's about an hour before dark. It's quite a big beach, this one, but it's fairly deserted. I'm using a 2-hook rig, as you know. I often do that with the worms, but it's a great way to fish. I haven't seen that rod get a bite yet. It doesn't look like it's actually drifting at all. It's holding its position, which is what I thought would happen, which is great. It's going to wind up a little bit of slack line on it. So it's pretty much stayed straight out. So that's really good. I love that. Now I'm going to toss my worm bait out. Just a little bit to the right of the other one. Okay, we'll see how long it takes to get a bite. See what is swimming around out there. So I pulled my pilchard in. You can see it's been hacked up a little bit in the middle. It's not all gone. I could actually see my rod tip just going boom, 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 boom. So I'm not quite sure. Obviously, it wouldn't have been a salmon or a tailor. They would have annihilated the bait. But I'm going to put a new pilchard on anyway. Chuck that one in there for the fish, or the seagull will get it. Poor fish didn't get it. The seagulls are pretty quick. It's getting out of fairway, which is good. It certainly makes a difference casting a big bait with a rod that's actually built for it. In the right weight line, you can put a bit of effort into it and nothing gets strained. My line went sideways this time, which was unusual because there was no drift at all before. It's gone completely down the beach. Doesn't feel like much weight on there. No, just a bit of weed, that's all. A little bit of weed got it. and it's amazing. It's not a huge piece of weed, but it carried my line sideways. Well, my last pilchard bait got completely nailed, so I think I might hold on to this rod and leave my worm bait out there to do its thing. This is just a set of 3 4-0 ganged hooks that I'm putting in here. 1, 2, and the top one through the eye. So yeah, I'm going to hold on to it this time, because I have had a bite each time I've chucked it out, and the fish hook themselves quite easily with the beach worms, so I think I'll leave that one to do its own thing. What a wild stretch of coast this is. It's amazingly beautiful. Cool. All right, we'll see how long it takes for this pilchard to get nailed. It's a great time in the evening. The sun is just starting to disappear. So my thinking today, or my strategy in coming down to the beach, is that very often, even when you get really rough water with big waves, you can find beautiful pockets of green water close to the shore. You could have waves breaking 150 metres, 200 metres out from the shore, a lot of mess, but then you find these beautiful pockets of deep water. They can just be little depressions or even long kind of troughs or gutters. And so that's what I look for when it's a big sea like this. I'll go and look at a couple of beaches and I'll just see, are there any nice looking pockets of green water on the inside that are close to the shore? You do actually find that a lot. And in this particular spot, there's a parallel trough or gutter that's running right along the edge here. It's quite deep out there, certainly deep enough to handle just about anything. You could get sharks or anything in there. So, and it's relatively close to shore, so it's within casting distance. There was actually another beach that I looked at as well that had a similar sort of setup, but I opted for this beach because I was confident that I could catch beach worms here, and that was my plan, was to catch worms and then have a fish. So I can certainly recommend to you, if you have big conditions, I mean ideally you need a headland, or you need vantage points on beaches where you can stand up and have a look along the beach and see if there are any nice little pockets of deep water. I've had some fantastic sessions just doing exactly that. So I put a little bit of time in today. Maybe I spent half an hour looking at a few different beaches in deciding where I was going to fish. I haven't had a nibble on this pilchard yet. I've been holding on to it since it hit the water, hit the ground. You'd certainly expect at this time of the afternoon to catch tailor or salmon, or perhaps flathead or a big brim on a pilchard bait. It's getting washed around a little bit. I had a question from Les from Gosford. G'day Les, if you're watching. Les was asking, how often should I check my line when it's been sitting in the water? And he was saying he has a bit of trouble with getting his leader tangled on his main line, and was wanting to know if his leaders are too long. Well, I think, Les, that you always want to be confident that you've got a bait in the water. Sometimes your bait gets taken, you don't want to have your line sitting out there with no bait on it. So I probably check my line about every 20 minutes if I've got large baits or set lines. And I generally stick to shorter leaders. I think if you've got long leaders, there is more potential for tangle around your main line. I rarely have leaders longer than about 50 centimetres long. So yeah, that's what my answer would be. Check it about every 20 minutes or so, and maybe not have your leaders so long, and you might get less tangles. This question was from my video about selecting rods and reels for beach fishing. Matthew Stevens, g'day Matthew, asked a question. When you're using the heavier lines, like say 40-pound monofilament line, do you find that fish are line shy? Well, Matthew, it does depend a little bit on the species of fish. There are certain species of fish it makes no difference at all. It makes no difference with tailor. You could use as heavy line you like, they're not line shy. Same thing with salmon. Flathead couldn't give a rip about how heavy line is. Brim are a little bit more cagey and timid, so you're probably going to catch a lot less brim, but you'll still catch things like mulloway, tailor, salmon, kingfish, and flathead. So it's really more the smaller species that you use light line for anyway. Sometimes you jag one of those species on heavy line, but I don't think it makes too much of a difference, because when you're using heavy line, you're always targeting bigger fish anyway. Stephen Pincus asks, are there any beachworms on the beaches in Melbourne? G'day, Stephen. Well, so far I've had no positive information about it. No one's been able to say that there are, unfortunately. So that's all the information I've got. And guys, if you've got any questions on what I'm teaching in this video, or even other fishing questions, make sure you whack them in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer them. Oh, I haven't got a fish. I thought I had a bite then. I'm not sure if that was a bite. There's actually a little bit of current now going from left to right, interestingly enough. But I'll pull my line in and see if I actually have any pilchard left. No bait. Look at that. So it definitely was a bite. Could have been a tailor. See if there's any fraying on my line. No, I can't feel any fraying. Oh well, it's been pretty quiet. It's the first bite that I've actually felt on my line. So I'll whack another pilchard on and get it out there. So that was probably a tailor, but I missed it. If you'd like a free PDF download of some vital keys from today's session, hit the link in the corner or in the description below. Using the strategy that I'm teaching you tonight in this video, I've caught so many fish over the years off the beach by choosing those beautiful pockets of deep water, even in really rough conditions. But believe it or not, I haven't caught a single fish in this session. That is super rare. It's very unusual that I'm holding my rod and I just don't get many bites. I've only had a couple of bites, but I'm going to post this video anyway, just so that you guys know that there are times when we all don't catch fish. But I'm a little bit surprised because I've got good bait. It's a good depth of water, but sometimes the fish just aren't there, or there aren't many fish. Haven't finished yet, but at this point in time I haven't landed a single fish. Oh, I missed it again. Definitely had a bite, but it's so turbulent out there. It's like, man, I'll chuck it straight back out in the same spot, because that was definitely a tailor bite, I think. Pretty sure I've lost the pilchard. But man, yeah, was it? Tailor are interesting because they just ragdoll the bait. They just grab it and shake it around violently, and you sort of have to strike in the middle of that. And sometimes you hook them and sometimes you don't. Now I've got no bait left, so that's definitely what happened. So I whack another pilly on, whack another pilchard on, and get it back out there. Well guys, it's a big donut. I honestly can't remember the last time I went fishing and didn't catch a fish. It's very strange for me. Well, there you go. Can't have it all the time. What can I say? It's disappointing. But, you know, it's all good. It doesn't discourage me in the slightest. I'm always very enthusiastic. Anyways, look, thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Great to hear all of your comments. I love making these videos and love hearing the comments that you guys make on YouTube. It's awesome. I'll see you really soon in another video.